When we think about video games, we usually picture kids, right? Teenagers glued to a screen. But what if I told you a virtual reality game could actually be a game changer for our health, and specifically for the health of older adults? So take a look at these folks. They're really the stars of this whole story. During the COVID-19 lockdown, when we were all stuck inside, they went on this incredible journey. Not to some exotic location, but to a whole new virtual world. And they did it all right from their living rooms. And really, their journey brings up this massive question, doesn't it? Could something that looks this fun, this much like a game, actually be the future of fitness for seniors? Let's dive into the research and see what it tells us.
Okay, so before we jump into the game itself, we gotta back up a little. We need to understand the problem it was trying to solve. And it was a big one, a real-world problem that a global crisis made, well, incredibly urgent.
Here's the thing. Our global population is aging. I mean, by 2050, we're looking at something like 2.1 billion people over the age of 60. That's huge. And it comes with some real challenges, like how do you help people stay active and connected? Then, boom, the pandemic hits. It just took that problem and amplified it 1,000 times over. All of a sudden, we desperately needed safe, at-home ways to keep older adults healthy.
So, what do you do? How do you tackle a problem that big? Well, a team of researchers in Canada came up with a pretty ingenious solution, a kind of virtual lifeline. They called it Seize the Day.
Seize the Day is what's called a VR exergame. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like, a video game built for exercise. And it's smart. It's a 20-minute session you do while sitting down, and it's structured just like a proper workout. You've got a warm-up, the main exercise, and a cool-down. All right, so the whole thing kicks off really gently. You're guided through these calm Tai Chi-style movements. The idea is just to get everything warmed up. Your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, getting you ready for what's next. And then comes the main event, the conditioning part. For the next 10 minutes, you're in a virtual boat and you're rowing. But you're not just rowing in place. You're following a dolphin through this gorgeous, immersive world. This is the real cardio workout, and the goal was to make it so engaging you almost forget you're exercising. And finally, for the cool down, you go fishing. Now, this sounds relaxing, and it is, but it's also really clever. It keeps your arms moving, sure, but it's also secretly measuring your cognitive performance. The game is actually tracking your reaction time, how fast you respond when you get a bite. Super smart. Okay, so having a cool game is one thing, but the million-dollar question is, does it actually work in the real world? To figure that out, the researchers did something pretty cool. They took their experiment out of the pristine lab and put it right into people's living rooms. And the way they set this up was just wow. Especially remember, this was during a pandemic. So you had 13 older adults, average age of 68, taking part. Over 6 weeks, they did 18 sessions each. The researchers sanitized the VR headsets and shipped them right to their homes. And here's the kicker. All the data was collected automatically by the headset. No one had to go into their homes. It was totally remote. So the study was really looking at two key things. First, the game was constantly tracking hard data, performance metrics, every single time they played. But second, and just as important, the researchers also checked in with the participants halfway through and at the end, just to ask, hey, how's it going? What's your experience been like? All right, so the big moment. After 6 weeks, after all those virtual sessions, what did the data actually show? What did all those pixels and performance numbers have to say? Well, to put it simply, the story the data told was really, really clear. It wasn't just positive. It showed that these participants weren't just playing a game, they were actually improving. Okay, I know this chart looks a little complicated at first glance, but the story it tells is super simple. Just look at the rowing data. See all those thin gray lines? Each one is a single person's progress. Yeah, it goes up and down day to day, but look at that thick black line in the middle. That's the average, and it shows a clear, steady climb upwards. They were, without a doubt, getting stronger. So let's just boil that down to one number, a really impressive one. By the end of the study, the average person was doing over 40% more oar strokes than they did on day one. That's not a small change. That's a huge, measurable improvement in their physical ability. But the researchers wanted to go even deeper. So they created this special metric called DAPI. The easiest way to think about it is like a single, all-in-one score for your progress. It pulls together everything, your speed, your accuracy, how many mistakes you made, and it even accounts for where you started. It's a really smart way to see the true picture of improvement. And when you look at the DAPI scores, the story gets even more interesting. So that bold blue line, yep, that confirms what we already saw. On average, people improved. But look closely at those red lines. A couple of people actually saw their performance go down. And that's such an important discovery, right? It's a powerful reminder that with health and fitness, one size definitely does not fit all.
But numbers and charts are only half the equation. If you really want to know if something like this can work long term, you've got to look beyond the data. You have to ask about the human side of things.
Because really, this is the make or break question, isn't it? The data proves they got better. Great. But did they actually enjoy it? And the answer was, for the most part, a big yes. People rated it as super useful, easy to use, and really enjoyable. But there's a little catch. If you look at those orange bars, by the end of the 6 weeks, there was a little dip, both in enjoyment and in how much they wanted to keep playing. It kind of suggests that the initial novelty, that wow factor of VR, might start to fade a bit over time. So, what's the big takeaway here? What does this all mean for the future? Well, this study is hinting at something huge, a shift where these extra games could go from just being fun entertainment to becoming a legitimate form of, well, digital medicine. And that's really the core conclusion from the researchers themselves. They said, look, these two things, the hard data from the game and how people feel about the experience, they're not separate. They're two sides of the same coin. You need both to get the full picture of someone's progress. And that tells us that the future has to be all about personalization. And that leaves us with one final, kind of mind-blowing thought to chew on. As technology and healthcare get closer and closer, what if, someday soon, you go to the doctor and your next prescription isn't a pill, but a game?